July is Client Appreciation Month at Sport Clips Haircuts. Get a double MVP for the price of an MVP, or cool it down and try the MVP on ice. It's our way of saying thanks for all you do. Hurry, ends July 31st. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we got for you from Thursday. Wild night at DeAndre Jordan's house. Who is to blame, and does the NBA need to make changes to free agency? World Cup champions Abby Wambach and Megan Rapinoe in our studio. Adam Schefter with the latest on JPP.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Oh, my goodness. Back and better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, hopefully some of them can make some sense of what we've seen in the last 24 hours. What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Are you kidding me? As Johnny Mack would say, you cannot be serious. I don't believe what I just saw. Do you believe in miracles? Never mind, that one doesn't apply. But anyway, lots going on in the world of sports. Rory McIlroy, JPP on the way, but we start, Golic, with maybe the craziest day in the NBA you can ever remember, one that went well into the night, a story told in emojis across social media, and one that eventually ends with DeAndre Jordan going back to Los Angeles with the Clippers, and Mark Cuban, if the reports are to be believed, driving aimlessly around Houston trying to find his house. And there is nothing worse, and I'm going to rewrite the expression, hell hath no fury like a billionaire scorned.
You're not kidding.
Watch out for Mark Cuban. Here we go. Mike, what in the world happened
Well, first off, I'm going to say, do you believe in miracles does apply if you go back to J.J. Redick's interview when he gave his team an F.
Yeah.
And he went through all the bad things, and he said, nothing short of a miracle, can change this. Well, here's your miracle. The only thing about the billionaire scorned, Greeny, is before he was scorned, a bigger billionaire was scorned, and that was Ballmer. That was Steve Ballmer, who was worth more than Mark Cuban.
But he wasn't scorned.
They didn't get his guy. Listen, he just spent an ungodly amount of money on his team. This team's a pretty darn good team, and they just had a huge piece of that puzzle choose to go somewhere else, and it wasn't really about the money. He ends up getting 8 more going back to the Clippers, so I highly doubt it was about the money. So in a way, to me, I have to think he had to be going to Doc Rivers and say, to use one of your phrases, what the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? We're building a team here, and this guy gets away. So I do think he was a little upset, but that's in the past now. So what happened here? The reports are that it was DeAndre Jordan who started having second thoughts about it and was talking to Blake Griffin. So the Clippers are saying that's what opened the door for us to start talking to him again. I don't think the Mavericks quite believe that and feel that the Clippers, who felt scorned, came after him in this 8-day grace period or dead period when there's supposed to be the gentleman's agreement. Once you agree with a deal, that person is supposed to be hands off. Ha! I mean, Pete Genesini, our buddy here, emailed that to us. I thought about it right away. Every college is laughing at that, laughing hysterically at that. You know how many players, how many of these 18-year-olds commit to a school? Do you think the other schools stop recruiting them? They do not. So there's a lot of tentacles to go here. That's one of them. That needs to be changed. You heard Michael Wilbon say it right at the end of the Open. He's exactly right. You don't want that to happen when you agree to a deal. You know when the deal's done? When you sign it. Other than that, anybody can talk to you at any time.
Well, that isn't the way it's supposed to work. Right. And the difference in theory between pro basketball and college football, what you're talking about, is that there is zero honor in college football. That has been made clear by the fact that they have to create a thick book full of unbelievable rules because these guys are such snakes that they will do absolutely anything with these 18-year-old kids whom they're not paying a penny to, by the way, rather than the $80 million Mark Cuban had on the table for DeAndre Jordan. And this is supposed to be business. And if I look you in the eye, shake your hand, and say, we have a deal, you're supposed to honor that. The one who looks like just listen, I like DeAndre Jordan. He's been on the show many times. Yep. He has a fun personality. He's a good player and everything else. But he looks awful in this. I mean, you could not, no one comes out of this thing. Worst. I don't care if the Clippers look a little bad coming out of this. DeAndre Jordan comes out of this thing looking absolutely ridiculous.
The worst, and I'll get that out of the way right away. You want to talk about, did the Clippers go after him when they shouldn't have? You didn't like the situation. You didn't like all the players going to his house, putting the chair in front of the door, in a way to not let any of the Mavericks in. The person who looks the worst, without question, is DeAndre Jordan. Here's a guy that sat there in front of a man, shook his hand, and said, I'll take your $80 million for the next few years, and then decided not to, which is absolutely, positively his right. He had every right to not want to do that. But you can forget even answering Mark Cuban's phone calls. DeAndre Jordan should have called Mark Cuban. He should have initiated the call and said, listen, I know this isn't going to be good for you, but I've changed my mind. This is my decision. I'm going back to the Clippers. Now, I got to say to the 6'11", 7-footer, 200 and whatever pounder is man up. Man up. Are you kidding me? Hiding out, not answering text or phone calls? What are you, 5? My God. Call the man and say, you know what? I had a change of heart. I'm not coming there. Yeah, he's not going to be mad. You're afraid of getting yelled at by Mark Cuban? Are you serious? So that, to me, by far, the biggest thing I take out of it is DeAndre Jordan, for as big as you are, you were pretty small in this situation to not, quite honestly, contact them first, let alone not even answer anything they did and just say, I'm going back to the Clippers. Because you had every right to do that. Every right to do that. They would have been mad. Deal with it. You made a big boy decision by agreeing to to take their $80 million. Make the big boy move of telling them, hey, I've changed my mind.
No, I totally agree. I have a little bit less. I don't fully agree with you that you can back out on a verbal agreement either. I mean, the moratorium, I guess, it's just a ridiculous thing.
Exactly right.
Because when you make that agreement with someone, you tell them, I'm going to come, I'm going to sign, in a system that everyone knows that everyone has to wait until July 9th. Right. Everyone then acts based upon that verbal agreement. It's not like they say, well, we won't do anything until the 9th when we actually have your signature on a piece of paper. It's understood
I'm not
that
saying
if you agree, you're going to do it. So I don't even go that far. I won't even give them that. If you agree to the deal, sign the deal. Sign the deal. You make an agreement, you bargain in good faith, sign the deal. The time to change your mind was before you made the agreement, not afterwards. So, to me, he compounds the problem. I mean, intensifies the problem. Right. I agree with you. Yeah. With the childish way that he did it, hiding there, and the fact that he's sitting there with his mother, looking over the contract while his agent is locked out, and Mark Cuban, again, if you're to believe it, is driving around Houston trying to figure out where the house is, while Blake Griffin has a chair in front of the door, like this is a 60s television show. I mean, that whole part of it became comical and ludicrous. But what it ultimately comes down to is you either have a deal or you don't. Yeah. In life, you either are, your word means something or it doesn't. Yeah. Because everyone, not just the Mavericks, I mean, they're obviously the ones who are overwhelmingly the most affected by this, and they have every right to be furious. But then everyone else also, there's a domino effect of DeAndre Jordan signed here, so this team did this, and this team did this, and this player did this, and all the rest of that.
Dallas is holding the bag.
Dallas is holding the bag, and other people also made decisions that they may otherwise not have made. Right. Are now in situations they might have preferred other situations had they been made available to him. So DeAndre Jordan, it just looks ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
I agree slightly with you about your word, because I'm with you. I'm a word guy, so I understand that. But what does every single person always say? Get it in writing. Yeah, and I know we're going to differ just a little bit on this. Do I think it was bad that he backed out of a verbal agreement? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But to me, an issue is you can change all that by getting rid of this moratorium.
Yeah, okay, that's the thing. Right. Because this is not just a verbal agreement. This is a verbal agreement that is the same thing as saying, I'd sign it now, but we're not allowed to. Right? It's one thing if I make a verbal agreement with you and then call you back a week later and say I've had a change of heart. If I say, yes, the deal is done, and I'd sign it now, but we both know why I can't, to me, that's a step more than just a verbal agreement. I mean, everyone in the league has been doing this. I don't know exactly how long they've had this moratorium system in place.
And he's not the first to do this either.
Well, who's the last person who made an agreement during the moratorium period and then changed his mind? You're talking about the Antonio McDyess story?
Well, I mean, I have more than a few. Well, now, again, the guys that backed out of deals, maybe not in the moratorium situation, but there are guys that have agreed to deals and then backed out of deals.
in a variety of ways. But the moratorium to me changes the dynamic because the moratorium.
But how much does it change? Let me throw. Wasn't it Carlos Boozer, right? That Cleveland said they would opt out with him to give him the max, sign him to. Was it to give him the max?
I got it right here.
Yeah.
July 2004, Cavaliers agreed to forego a $700,000 team option to allow Carlos Boozer to become a restricted free agent with a handshake deal in place to re-sign Boozer for more money after he outperformed his previous contract. After becoming a restricted free agent, Boozer signs with the Jazz for $27 million more, joining the Jazz on a 6-year, $68 million deal.
So is that's a handshake?
It's terrible. Look, I mean, if you make that agreement, then that's a terrible.
So I guess
job.
I guess that's my point.
Okay, so that's 11 years ago.
Well, no. I mean, we have a sheet of some of these where people have backed out. But for the most part, I agree with you. I'm not big on. If I shake someone's hand, that pretty much going back to the Tom Cruise movie. Oh my God!
What?
My Show Me the Money.
Oh, Jerry Maguire?
Jerry Maguire, when he shakes the father's hand of the big recruit, my word is like oak, and then he goes with another agent, So, when you shake your hand, your word should mean something. But that, we've seen this happen before where someone's word doesn't mean a lot, and you want to jump on it for that. I agree with you. But to me, it's more of an issue it's even more of an issue to not even man up and tell the team that you shook the guy's hand and tell him you're not going. And quite honestly, I don't know if college, when you gave the situation of college, is worse or not. There's huge money in this. Yeah, I know there's huge money in college, but think if you're Steve Ballmer. I bought this team for $2 billion. A huge piece of it just decided to go somewhere else. You don't think if he may want to do everything he can from a business standpoint to get that guy back before he signs a contract?
But he's not supposed to. I mean, but these are the rules of the game.
He's not supposed to. These are billionaire businessmen. Are you really? These are billionaire businessmen who some of the way they get there is by cutthroat business.
But some of the other way they get there is by everyone respecting that we're all playing the same game by the same rules. Well, no, look, I don't think other guys, I really don't think other teams do this. And in this case, I don't believe that the Clippers initiated this. I believe, I mean, just, look, we're all trying to figure out what happened.
But the reports are DeAndre Jordan reached out to Blake Griffin.
Right. And that he suggested to Blake Griffin almost immediately that he was having second thoughts. And that Blake Griffin conveyed that to Doc Rivers, who conveyed it to Steve Ballmer, and everybody goes.
You have no issue with the Clippers at that point,
I have less issue with the Clippers than I have with DeAndre Jordan himself.
Right.
Yes. To me, the Clippers did, if after DeAndre Jordan announces to the world and tells everyone, listen, I guess at this point we have to assume that he actually called the Clippers himself and told them that, I don't know, the first time. But after he tells the world, I'm going to Dallas, if at that point the Clippers keep calling him, that to me I have a problem with. If they get word directly from him, listen, I'm having second thoughts, then I don't have a problem with them following up on that. Now, what I do have a major problem with is DeAndre Jordan not at any point, because from if again, all the reports are that the Mavericks were not able to get a hold of DeAndre Jordan going back to the middle of the day Tuesday.
Right.
Tuesday. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
I know it's only Thursday morning. Tuesday doesn't seem like that long ago, but think how many emojis have been passed since
that's
then.
Exactly right. And considering when you can sign the deal at 12:01, just a few hours ago, you would think you want to talk about setting that all up. And he's not returning calls, texts, emails, anything. That to me, that's unbelievable bush league.
Me too. Oh, it's terrible. I mean, look, you can't come out of this thing. You used exactly the right word. He's a very big man, but he looks very small.
We've had this guy on the show. We love having him on the show.
I do. He's got a great personality.
I would tell him today, what are you doing? Why aren't you? As I said, you shook the man's hand to take $80 million from him. You can't give him a phone call to say you're not. That to me is the worst thing.
Yeah. It's a lesson to all people. When you have bad news to deliver, perhaps the best thing to do is deliver it in person and at least hear what the other person on the other side of the bad news has to say. Because if you don't do that, then they may lose total respect
That's
for
exactly
you.
right.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You could save hundreds on your car, business, or recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now that's Progressive. All right, how did all this go down? Let's do the best we can here. Ramona Shelburne with what actually happened at DeAndre Jordan's house.
I've heard the meeting that they actually had didn't last long.
Right.
They just hashed things out, and then the rest of the night they sat around, they played cards and video games. His mother ordered some food. I mean, everyone I've talked to who was in that meeting said DeAndre Jordan essentially decided over the weekend that he was having a change of heart. When he called Blake Griffin on Monday, it seemed like he was already thinking, I'm coming back to the Clippers. They all just needed to get there, get in a room, and seal this deal. They sat with him until he signed that contract, though. They didn't let him out of his sight.
That's even worse. I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse. If he knew that Monday, then you got to tell Mark Cuban that on Monday.
I agree.
If the meeting only took a short time yesterday, and then they're playing cards and ordering food, he certainly had every opportunity to talk to Mark Cuban.
Oh, and how many times when they're ordering food, playing video games or cards, is his phone ringing and he goes, oh, there's Cuban again.
Yeah.
Decline.
Yeah.
Decline. I mean,
pathetic.
Come on. And through all this, I don't blame any of the Clippers. Once they felt that if it truly went down that way and the door was opened for them by DeAndre Jordan and they all went there and they did what they did, I have zero problem with them. At that point, they said, wait a minute, DeAndre has second thoughts. Okay, let's jump in, try and talk him back to
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much honor there is amongst thieves, but I don't think these guys are thieves. They are the NBA Board of Governors. They all work together. They run a league together. These are not just competing businesses. Yes, they compete with each other, but they're also part of the same organization. If you're Steve Ballmer, I know Ballmer's new to the league. He's only been in there a year.
Right.
But do you have an obligation if on Monday or whatever day it was that he got word DeAndre Jordan is having serious second thoughts
to call Cuban
and say, look, I have reason to believe that he's having second thoughts. I just want you to know I'm going to go meet with him. I'm going to go talk to him, and I'm going to try and change his mind. I think that I owe it to you to let you know that, since you think you have a deal with him, that he's telling me I'm getting word from my people that he has second thoughts. Now, I'm not asking for your permission.
I'm just telling you I'm going to do it.
I'm giving you the courtesy of letting you know I'm going to do it.
It all sounds like things you should do. But as I said again, I'm not saying billionaires are corrupt, but it's not like they all do those things all the time to get where they're getting.
But again,
does that sound like the right thing to do? Absolutely, it sounds like the right thing to do.
And here's why. Because this isn't McDonald's and Burger King, right, where one would like to put the other out of business.
Right.
These are two businesses that need each other, right? They have to work with each other on a million things.
They would still love their franchises to grow, in what they're worth.
And they need each other to do it and all that kind of stuff.
I agree with you. So in a vacuum, what you said sounds perfectly sensible that you would do that, yet I'm sure it wasn't done.
Ramona Shelburne.
Mark Cuban also, though, can send the whole NBA into a bit more chaos because he needs a center now.
Right.
Well, there's a few centers who've been traded in the last couple of days, except for those are only verbal agreements. Roy Hibbert got traded from Indiana to the Lakers. David Lee got traded from Golden State to Boston. Does Mark Cuban pick up the phone and say, I can make you a better offer? That's what the rest of the NBA is watching right now. I've spoken to people with the Lakers who are very worried that Mark Cuban will now go try to make those plays.
Some of the players, since DeAndre Jordan made his verbal agreement, some of the centers that committed to other teams, obviously LaMarcus Aldridge, Robin Lopez, Roy Hibbert in the trade to the Lakers, David Lee, David West, Kyle O'Quinn, some that are available. They're when I say holding the bag, it's also a bag full of about $20 million, right? Not that they're going to spend it on any of these guys I'm about to name, but guys like Enes Kanter, Cole Aldrich, Amari Stoudemire. I mean, these are one's restricted Kanter, the others are unrestricted. These are the centers out there available. Will Mark Cuban try? Will he try and cut into anybody else who hasn't signed yet? I have no idea, but they got hammered here. No doubt about it. They got hammered here, and they're left holding that $20 million bag that was going to go to DeAndre Jordan without a center. I have a guy who was a rookie last year who, averaged 3 points a game last year, something like that, 3.1, Dwight Powell.
Yeah.
That's their big man. So they have to say they have a big hole to fill would be an understatement.
Yes, and indeed it would. It's a completely ridiculous situation. Tim McMahon covers the Mavericks for us and ESPNDallas.com. Here he is on the situation that the Mavericks find themselves in.
If the Mavericks are going to be a playoff team, they need to be really, really bad. Because remember, just being pretty bad is not good enough because their pick is only top 7 protected. If it's eighth or higher, then it goes to the Boston Celtics as part of that disastrous Rajon Rondo deal.
So this is the conversation they're having. In Dallas, they go from having a center, a brand-new core to build around, to we need to tank our season to make sure our lottery pick doesn't wind up losing it.
Brought in Wes Matthews as well, a great shooter coming off an injury, but now they could be in that position. So who do you blame? There's different avenues of this. Who do you blame? Who do you think is most in the wrong? And while I understand the honor you're talking about in the certain situations, I agree with that. I don't think it exists a whole lot. I don't. I just think guys are going to do what they're going to do, what's right for their team. To a line, I get it. There's obviously dishonor and illegal, and there's lines in there. But while I think they do some honorable things, I don't think there's any doubt you get to a position like that without, going behind, someone's back a few times as well.
I'd like to find that out. We need to get someone today who can answer that question, an NBA general manager, a former one, or ideally an owner or someone like that, because I just, if you're going to do something that is going directly behind the back of a fellow owner. I mean, again, these guys sit on boards together. They're the board of governors of the NBA. Steve Ballmer is the governor of the LA Clippers. Mark Cuban is the governor of the Dallas Mavericks. They have to make a million decisions together. They have to do all right. They got to sit in a room together.
They have to sit in rooms together
and do all this stuff.
Right.
So if he's going behind his back on something like this,
but again, I'll say, if it is true that DeAndre Jordan called Blake Griffin and started this, there's no issue. Even would it have been nice for Ballmer to call Cuban? It would have been a nice, kind of cool thing to do. But I'm not ripping him for not doing that. As far as I'm concerned, when DeAndre Jordan called Blake Griffin and said, "I'm having second thoughts," that opened the door a crack, and those guys went running in. I don't blame them one bit.
If you're not going to extend general courtesy to your business partners, then don't be surprised when it's not returned.
Okay, you know what? That's business is a line we're going to hear an awful lot.
Yes, but this is a different kind of business. It's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to know what the etiquette is on something like this. I think this, while not completely unprecedented, this is a unique circumstance. Yes. So I'd like to hear what the etiquette on something like this is. It certainly sounds to me the Clippers could have handled this better than they did, but generally I don't blame them for doing what they did. DeAndre Jordan couldn't have handled it worse than he did.
Horrible.
And the Mavericks are left holding the bag.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Well, let's continue here with the LA Clippers. How much of a difference does DeAndre Jordan make? With DeAndre Jordan, the Clippers, according to Westgate Las Vegas Superbook, were 10-1 to win the NBA championship. Without him, when he announced he was going to Dallas, they went to 20-1. As of last night, from what I read, with the reversal, they went back to 12-1.
So 10-1 to 20-1 to 12-1.
So it's a significant change there when he makes the moves that he makes. Here's Ramona Shelburne on the Clippers.
They had absolutely no good options without him. I mean, they were right up against the hard cap. They were going to have to trade Jamal Crawford just to make enough room under the salary cap to go sign more players. I mean, they had some options. They tried to convince David West to do a deal with him. They've been talking to Josh Smith, but they really just had minimum salary contracts, and they were going to have to trade. They're going to have to trade Jamal Crawford, 2-time Sixth Man of the Year, just to make room under the salary cap to get any of these players. And this was essential for the Clippers to get DeAndre Jordan, because if not, Blake Griffin was playing center. He's the only guy on the roster who's over 6'9", and that is not a championship contender.
Yeah, here I opened up my Twitter reactions during the break, and I saw a lot of people are saying, Greeny, you have no idea what you're talking about. In business, people will do anything. This is business. These are corporations will do this all the time. I understand that, obviously. I don't live in a utopian world, despite the fact that I'd love to. But this is not just any business. You know what I mean? Like there are competing businesses. Okay, if I'm in competition with you, let's just use a very, very small example, but one that I have had in my life. My parents owned a bookstore, right? A little independent bookstore. So if I own a bookstore and you open up a bookstore across the street, my goal is to put you out of business, right? I will do better if you're gone completely. So I'll do anything I can to try and put you out of business. Professional sports teams that operate within the same league don't have that relationship. Steve Ballmer doesn't want to put Mark Cuban out of business. He doesn't want Mark Cuban's business to go badly. So they have competing interests in the area that Ballmer wants his team to win and Cuban wants his team to win. But they also have a million mutual interests, right? They negotiate together when it comes to the collective bargaining agreement and all this kind of stuff. They have to be business. They are business partners as well as competitors.
I get that. So what's going to change? That Cuban may not like the fact that Ballmer didn't call him? So
isn't there some element of trust that those people in that room have to each other?
Forget that. Let's stick to business, because this is what it is, and to what you're talking about. So if you think Ballmer should have called Cuban to give him a heads up, and you think now that Cuban would be mad because he didn't, and now these guys have to work together, yeah, they have to work together. And you know what? Business goes on. So do we think Mark Cuban is going to do something to hurt Ballmer when they're working together for something? I mean, they're still going to work together. I mean, he may not like what he did. Do we think all of these owners like one another? And I talk about a locker room all the time. Go to an owners meeting sometime and think if they all like one another. But so it's business.
But don't you have to be able to trust to some degree that you're not going to do something completely unethical?
Every owner trusts every other owner? Not a chance on God's green earth. That's just my opinion. I think it's like a locker room, only the guys have way deeper pockets. That they got to their position somehow, some way, and they're conducting business. They keep conducting business, and they look across the room, and some guys they look and smile, and some guys they look and smile, but in their head they're not. They don't trust them. I mean, to think that every owner is getting in that room and saying, come on, guys, let's work together, and go off together and do the right thing and work. They're going to work together for to raise the value of the NBA, which raises the value of their franchise, but it doesn't mean they have to like one another or trust one another.
Okay, well, let's take like out of it. I understand. It doesn't make any difference if they like.
Trust.
There has to be some element of trust. Here's the thing. We have all mutually agreed.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm an owner. You're an owner, Cerruti, Patriot Ray, all of us in the room are owners. And we have all mutually agreed that on July 1st, the league year begins, and there's a moratorium until July 9th. So you can make verbal agreements, but you can't sign anything until July 9th. Mm-hmm. Because we've all mutually agreed on that, and they have their reasons for doing it, and I think they may have to change that now.
Agree with that.
That's the only reason that the contract wasn't signed when they announced it. Right? LaMarcus Aldridge could have signed on Saturday, and DeAndre Jordan could have signed on Friday, and Greg Monroe could have signed on Thursday, and everybody else could have, but they can't because they have all mutually agreed, we'll do our accounting and figure out where the cap is going to wind up exactly, whatever exactly the reasons are that they have this moratorium. And we've all agreed, once that these verbal agreements are made, that's it. The deal is done, and everyone else is going to go off and do their business based on the fact, again, other people's, not just Cuban, made decisions based on the fact that domino had fallen.
I agree.
If you can't trust that, then you got a bigger problem. It's not just a small problem. That to me is a big problem.
Now we're doing a hypothetical. Because
it's not a hypothetical. It just happened.
No. The report was DeAndre Jordan called the Clippers. If he called his buddies and said, I'm having a second thought, your point is a moot point. There is no honor I'm going to call it to. DeAndre Jordan said, I'm having second thoughts. The Clippers, as far as I'm concerned, had every right to move in. Did Ballmer have to call Cuban and say it? Absolutely not. Would it have been a nice thing to do? I'll give you that. But my God, it is certainly not, required to do. DeAndre Jordan opened the door. The Clippers walked in and then blocked the door. I have zero issue with that. It turns out horrible, obviously, for Mark Cuban, but it all depends on, if we've been talking about this morning that the Clippers completely did this on their own, then we can more have your discussion on where the honor is, and that can be a shaky thing. But from all reports we're getting, DeAndre Jordan opened the door, let the Clippers walk in, and then didn't tell the Mavericks what was going on. So as far as I'm concerned, this is on him.
I'd love to find out what the etiquette is in a circumstance like this. And again, there are very few circumstances exactly like this one.
Right.
But amongst people who are both partners and competitors, and there's a pretty unique circumstance in business. There aren't that many businesses where that applies, right, where I can be both your partner and your competitor.
Right.
But there are probably other situations that are remotely similar. What is the etiquette here? It would seem to me, if I'm Cuban, I would say to Ballmer, look, you don't even give me a chance to react. If you know that he's having second thoughts and you're going to go in there and talk to him, I get it. You're going to go in there and talk to him. I think you owe me a courtesy of saying, listen, I have word that he's having second thoughts, and I'm going to go meet with him. I just want to let you know that, so you might want to react some other way. You might want to go call Robin Lopez, who chose the Knicks because Dallas wasn't an option anymore, and give a call to him. And then, by the way, someone better call Jim Dolan and let him know. And now you got a whole bunch of musical chairs. Look, at the end of the day, this is all DeAndre Jordan's fault.
It is.
Right? It all comes back to him. Because when you make a verbal agreement and you got $80 million sitting on the table, you're not an 18-year-old kid who's choosing a college.
I agree.
You got $80 million sitting, all you do is sign the piece of paper. And in my opinion, you got to do it.
Yep, and I'll disagree with you. I don't think Ballmer owed him a phone call at all. And I think this is business. And DeAndre Jordan opened the door, and I'm sure the eyebrows were starting to get raised in Dallas since Monday, or was it Tuesday?
Tuesday.
DeAndre Jordan wasn't returning any calls or anything. So now at that point, your other guys have already committed. Most guys had committed by then anyway. So
but none of them have signed.
Well, no,
they're all in the same situation that this is.
Right.
And at that point, I mean, to me, if you're Cuban, now now literally the rules are there ain't no rules, right? As they famously said in Greece.
No. If DeAndre Jordan did this, it's on DeAndre Jordan. Why?
Well, because Robin Lopez, let's just use Lopez as an example. He only, if this is true, I mean, this is what Robin Lopez chose the Knicks only because Dallas wasn't an option. And Dallas wasn't an option because they had DeAndre Jordan.
I get all that. But why should Cuban be mad at the Clippers? Why is he going to think there's no honor? Why would reverse this? Go back 8 years ago when Dirk Nowitzki is, not at the end of his career, but right here, and reverse the situations. Dirk left and committed in the same fashion to the Clippers, okay? And then all of a sudden he called somebody else on the team, whoever was with him 5-6 years ago, and said, you know what, I'm having second thoughts. Do you think Cuban would have called Ballmer? Or do you think the contingent from Dallas would have done the exact same thing the Clippers did, went there and said, the door is open, guys, the door is cracked, Dirk's not sure, let's go to his house and do exactly what the Clippers did? Do we think Cuban is calling Ballmer? No.
Maybe not.
No, he's not calling Ballmer.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Guys, at Sport Clips Haircuts, we appreciate everything you do. So this month, we're giving you double the Sport Clips MVP experience for the price of a single. It's the Sport Clips Instant Replay. After your haircut, go into overtime on our legendary hot towel treatment. Enjoy a double header of our massaging shampoo and soothing scalp treatment. And beat the heat with our new MVP on ice. Our legendary hot towel becomes the refreshing chilled towel at no extra charge. Sport Clips, it's good to be a guy.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
So much of the conversation this morning has centered, or certainly to this point, all of it, around DeAndre Jordan. And I'll tell you what else. I believe a new era was begun yesterday. A new era in American conversation. We had already gone to a new generation of discussion where only 140 characters were required. Now, we no longer even use words. We've gone beyond the word stage, and we've just gone to emojis.
Emojis are the thing. Listen, my kids use them all the time. I've never used them. You say you've never used them.
I don't use them. I mean, I have used them. I'm not a big emoji user.
I don't think I may never have, or maybe once or something with my kids. My kids use them all the time. That's the generation. They love the emojis, and there's so many of them out there, and that's how... if it's not words, that's how this generation speaks.
But my point is, yesterday, words were no longer required.
No, they were not.
We've gone to a whole new place in American discussion because these guys were just tweeting emojis, and everyone knew what they meant. And by the way, as you would expect, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan dropped the mic. If you haven't seen their tweets, just go find them. Michael Jordan's brand tweeted a picture of a goat. It just doesn't get any better than that, except for maybe Kobe Bryant tweeting a picture of 5 NBA trophies and then the hashtag Mamba out. So those guys dominated on Twitter yesterday as they have dominated on the floor through most of their careers. DeAndre Jordan, maybe not quite as much. So a lot of the discussion this morning has been, for those just joining us, about who is at fault here. It begins with DeAndre Jordan, who you could not look worse, in my opinion, than he comes out of this thing looking. Changing your mind in the first place is bad, real bad. Not letting the Mavericks know the moment you're starting to really seriously have questions about it so they have time to react after all they did was bargain in good faith with you and give you $80 million, then that's real bad. But then the worst of it is to be sitting there to make up your mind quickly yesterday, as Ramona Shelburne reports they did, then sit around ordering food and playing cards and just blocking Mark Cuban's calls and waiting until 12:01 when you can sign the contract and ignoring/avoiding the Mavericks. That's, you know what it is? It's pathetic. That's pathetic.
You have a problem with the Clippers doing that? I have zero problem with those players showing up at that house and sitting there. My whole issue with DeAndre Jordan, the Clippers didn't block Mark Cuban's calls and not
I just said DeAndre Jordan.
No, I know, but you said the Clippers then. You said the Clippers did that, and it from the way you just said it, it made it sound like you had a problem with the Clippers coming over to the house. I have zero problem.
No, to me, the problem I have with DeAndre Jordan is that if the Clippers are in your house and you have made up your mind, according to Ramona Shelburne, he made up his mind almost immediately. In fact, already had made up his mind. He just needed them around for whatever reason he needed them around, then A, he should be calling Cuban himself, much less blocking his call.
We agree. It sounded like you said the Clippers were at fault here.
Well, I don't love the way the Clippers handle it, but they're way lower on the list of things.
And I don't have a problem with the way they handle it. This, to me, is on DeAndre Jordan completely. There are those that are saying, hey, how about the owner sometimes when a guy finds out he was traded on SportsCenter, or another way outside of the coach or someone from the team telling him, so tough. Business is business. You know what? There's something to that. If you trade a guy, don't you think as a coach or a GM, maybe not the owner in every situation, but a coach or a GM should tell the guy? Of course. And we certainly know that hasn't happened at all times. So people are saying, hey.
They usually do.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So, and we rip them for that, and certainly we rip DeAndre Jordan for this one here. So, yeah, sometimes it does. But there are those saying, hey, sometimes the owners or a team doesn't give the player a courtesy of a face-to-face when something big like a trade is going to happen. So, you know what? Tough. Like, that's what some people are saying.
At the end of the day, when you're dealing with someone in good faith and you both parties have respect for each other, and you have to deliver bad news, sometimes you have to deliver that news, and you have to deliver it in person, even if you know the other person isn't going to like it.
Agreed.
And if you don't be surprised when they lose all respect for you. DeAndre Jordan, says Emily, is a coward for not speaking with Cuban. Are you kidding me? Sending out pictures of a chair in front of the door, and now you're inside just playing video games? How childish. Have the decency to speak with Cuban. John, while you were correct, he should have manned up and told the Mavericks that he had changed his mind. But just like with large purchases, there was a 3-day grace period where you can cancel a deal over a certain amount, meaning homes, cars,
right,
etc.
Right. And this is an 8-day moratorium, but it is understood kind of in principle that nothing is, that everybody is copacetic with it. You did the handshake, you did the deal. So, again, I keep going back to DeAndre Jordan. He's the one that started all of this by basically saying, I don't want to do the deal now.
John in Ohio, if we shake hands and you back out, I don't give a damn how you act afterwards. I already know what kind of person you are.
You know what? And here's the thing. I don't think DeAndre Jordan cares. DeAndre Jordan is going back to the Clippers. He's going to make $88 million, and he's going to play for them. That's another thing. I don't think he cares that Mark Cuban or the people in Dallas or whoever lost respect for him. And that's you could say that's an issue as well if you want. But I just hate the way he handled it. Just hate it.
Amin El Hassan, again, our front office insider.
If I'm the Mavericks, if I'm Mark Cuban, I am furious. And we talking in the green room, AD, I said, to DJ, I'm saying, come on, man. Hey, let me just get out there. We'll talk it out. But to his agent, I'm saying every 4-letter word in the book, man. You better not mess me over on this one, because we had a deal. And that goes to the very crux of the trust you have with the agents that you deal with.
So it comes down to the agent. And as Ramona Shelburne was reporting yesterday, DeAndre Jordan froze his agent out of the process.
DeAndre Jordan had a fallout with his agent, Dan Fagan. He was not at DeAndre Jordan's house when the Clippers were meeting with him all day long. Now, at the end, there was a representative from his agency, but it was not his agent, Dan Fagan, who was there when the contract was signed. So there's some question now of whether or not his agents will be able to certify that they negotiated this contract.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, there's percentages on the line. It's $88 million that the agency is going to get a percentage of. So you best know there'll be a fight over that if DeAndre tries to say, no to them, and I have no idea if he will or not. But yeah, so it's a very interesting story that has a lot of different tentacles to it. The bottom line is he's back with the Clippers. They're back to, they were 10-1 for the title, then 20-1 when he left, now 12-1 that he's back. So they're going to be one of the top teams considered in the West. And the Dallas Mavericks, who were looking to load up this year, got Wes Matthews, the shooter from Portland, and DeAndre Jordan. We're looking to make that move. Now they may go all the way to the point of tanking a season to go for a higher draft pick, because they have a whole lot of money to spend and absolutely nobody to spend it on.
It's a day filled with crazy stories. We've been on this one all morning long so far. We haven't even gotten to Jason Pierre-Paul yet, but we will in exactly 1 minute. Adam Schefter is ready to go live here on Mike and Mike with exactly what it is that has happened with JPP and where it goes from here. He joins us after this word from Cabot. Mike, behold the triple play. In baseball, it is beautiful, it is rare, and it's definitely effective. Now we take you from a triple play at the ball game to a triple play for your back deck, specifically the triple oil protection of Australian timber oil from Cabot Wood Stain.
Yep, a combination of 3 superior grade oils provides a rich color, gives your wood deck all-weather protection, long-lasting beauty. Australian timber oil was originally formulated, stand up to the harsh conditions of the Australian outback, so you know it can handle anything Mother Nature throws at you. Australian timber oil from Cabot Woodstain, 1 can, triple oil protection, Cabot, that's pro. Find Cabot at your neighborhood Ace, the helpful place. Where getting help is like going to your neighbor, a neighbor with all the best advice and brands like Cabot to help with all your wood staining project needs. Ace, the helpful place.
Whoa. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. An incredible day with crazy news around the world of sports. By now, you're probably aware of what's going on with Jason Pierre-Paul, who elected to have his finger amputated in a procedure that took place yesterday. The New York Giants officials who were down there in South Florida to meet with him never got the chance to do so. They departed.
Yeah, it was a trainer, and Jesse Armstead, who, is kind of that player liaison and someone who played with JPP and knows that they were supposed to be close friends, but never got past the waiting room to see him.
Our NFL insider extraordinaire, Adam Schefter, is on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline with perspective. Shefty, good morning. Go ahead. I'll just give you the floor. Take us through this thing sort of as best you have it from the very beginning of what happened with Jason Pierre-Paul and how they wound up where they wind up this morning.
Well, I think that everything has been shrouded in secrecy. There has been a cone of silence surrounding his condition that has gone on since the accident happened, to the point where, as you mentioned, the Giants officials were down there, and they left there without getting to meet with him, see him, visit him, and to know exactly what has been going on with him. Nobody has been able to get any kind of feel as to what exactly is the situation with JPP and the injuries that he sustained in the unfortunate accident over the weekend that involved the fireworks. Giants officials left, and they were not welcome there to see him, as you alluded to. So he made the decision, along with his team of doctors and family, that he felt like he was better off to have his right index finger amputated. Now, it's also important to note here, as Edward also reported, that he fractured his right thumb on the same hand. And the right thumb could take 6 to 8 weeks to heal here. So it's the thumb injury, ironically enough, that's going to knock him out for the longest period of time. And when you spoke to people yesterday about that injury, they felt like the amputation of that finger was something that he would absolutely be able to overcome. It would not be much of an issue, that he did this because he felt it gave him the best chance, both short and long term, to get back on the field and be effective. But the fractured thumb is an issue there where that's going to be more difficult for him to overcome here this summer. Of course, there's long-lasting permanent effects from the decision that he made, but it's an all-around unfortunate situation where JPP did what he felt is best for him. The Giants are in their own corner. The two sides are operating as two separate entities here. You have to remember JPP is not under contract to the New York Giants at this time.
And I want to get into that in a second, but just quickly, I guess, about the finger, and I don't know if we know fully. We all think of Ronnie Lott. But that was, I believe, the first knuckle. Just from a standpoint of I'm trying to figure out playing, was it the entire finger? Do we know that was amputated?
I don't know. The medical records show that the finger was amputated, whatever that means. Whether that means half the finger was removed, 3/4. I don't know the full answer to that. Just know that, again, finger amputated, fractured thumb, serious injuries that he now has to overcome moving forward, but there's a real sense that he'll be able to do that without much of an issue.
And then what you just mentioned, he hasn't signed a contract with the Giants or the tender for $14.8. I heard a lot of people talking about, well, that's why I didn't want to see him. They don't, he's not their property, but also he's not a free agent, right? I mean, so let's go through this. At the end of the day.
And I think, when people were saying that he would not allow them to see him, I think there was a real sense that this was troubling from an injury standpoint. Of course, now we know a lot more about the extent of his injuries. But I also think there was a professional component to this, and there was a financial component to this. Okay, JPP has gone through his career here where essentially he has not been able to cash in the way that other top defensive ends in the league have. When he was making $2 million and going to the Pro Bowl, and other defensive ends are making $10 million, there wasn't anything done for his contract at that point in time. And then, of course, we have a situation where he had back surgery and played with a back injury. So he feels like he did what he had to. And there's nothing that frustrates some players more than getting a franchise tag to where you can't go out on the open market and see what you're worth. And apparently they never got close to any type of contract extension, a long-term agreement. And so he's got that tag on him where he feels like probably he did everything that he could have done to get to that point. The Giants still control his rights through the franchise tag, but he's never signed it. So he's not their property. He's not under contract to them. So, yes, he's played for them. Yes, he's franchised by them. But right now he doesn't belong to them.
But he's got no power, though, Adam. I mean, right? He has zero power.
Well, again, correct. But he's doing what he feels is in his best interest to handle this situation going forward. Now, I don't know what his strategy is. I don't know where it ultimately goes. But I can't imagine the Giants are overly pleased with the developments here. You'd think this is one of their prized players, somebody they were going to pay $14.8 million this season. They'd like to be involved in a situation that's as serious as this one is. And they had zero involved. Zero.
Let me ask you a question, and just to make sure that we all understand this completely and that our audience understands it. The one theoretical power, Mike, that Pierre-Paul may have is if the Giants pull the offer, he becomes a free agent, right? He then can go sign anywhere.
That is correct. That is correct.
They're not pulling that offer, though, are they?
I would be very surprised, because I can tell you this, even with the injuries that he sustained, to me, how many teams would be in line to go sign one of the top defensive linemen in the game if they decide to pull it and make him an unrestricted free agent? I mean, you can just rattle off a dozen teams right now that could use his services and that probably would be willing to pay. But, again, I don't know, maybe his strategy was to frustrate them. I don't know to where they felt so frustrated that, you know what, we're going to pull the tag. It's hard to say. Again, there's been that cone of secrecy that has surrounded his physical condition, his mental condition, his professional strategy here. There's a lot to this right now.
It's crazy. Mike and Adam Schefter. And the other thought I would have is I don't know that the Giants are going to be comfortable, committing to $15 million, right? Nor would any other team without seeing his hand, right? I mean, at some point, someone's got to see it.
Again, okay, well, then that means you're pulling the tag.
Right.
And if you're not comfortable, like he could decide to go sign that tag or that franchise tender today, tomorrow, next week, or they could decide to pull the tag at the same time. They have until July 15th to work out a long-term extension. Nobody thinks that's happening. But the irony here is that I think that the two sides were so far apart anyway that even without the incident from this past weekend, I think there's probably a real chance he never would have gone to training camp anyway. So now we're right back to where we were, but under an entirely different set of circumstances.
Mike and Adam Schefter. Okay, crazy story. A bunch of other things I want to just ask you about real quickly. Yeah. Shefty, we've been talking about the DeAndre Jordan situation this morning, and part of that is created by the moratorium they have, and then part of it is just what the meaning of a handshake agreement is versus a signed contract in basketball, and we know NFL contracts are different. Have you ever had any NFL situations that you would describe as similar to what we've seen here with DeAndre?
Well, the irony is the NFL had one that happened just this off season, and the NFL implemented that negotiating strategy weekend where teams were allowed to tamper or whatever they call it, and the Philadelphia Eagles thought they had an agreement in place with Frank Gore.
Right.
Now, the irony of that is that, people were saying, okay, he's headed to Philly, he thought he was headed to Philly, they thought he was headed to Philly, he was going to sign once the free agent period opened, and then when the free agent period opened, right before then, his former college coach, Chuck Pagano, made a big move from the Colts, and somehow talked him out of changing his mind, and instead of going to Philly, wound up going to Indianapolis with one Frank Gore decision, or the indecision of Frank Gore. To me, it impacted all these teams. Look at what happened from Frank Gore changing his mind. Frank Gore changes his mind, goes to Indianapolis. San Francisco loses its running back that it was hoping to re-sign. Dallas loses DeMarco Murray to Philadelphia. San Diego loses Ryan Matthews to Philadelphia. All these crazy questions ensue. So Philadelphia, San Diego, San Francisco, Indianapolis, all impacted by one Frank Gore decision.
Mike and Mike Schefter with us. One more for you. I saw a story yesterday that Greg Hardy is ready to go to court if whenever his appeal is ultimately ruled upon, he receives anything more than a 2-game suspension. But that just reminded me that we've been waiting what feels like a very long time for a decision on that, and a shorter time, but it is ticking by the day, on Tom Brady. Do we have any indication of when we may hear on either of those cases?
Well, again, I think that the Hardy decision, I would think, would come in first, and it's been, I think, 6 weeks tomorrow. May 28th was the date of his appeal. Rarely do you see decisions hang over the league, everybody waiting for this long. It's really quite surprising that it's gone on this long, and I think it's been a foregone conclusion all along that short of the NFL reducing it to such a low number, which really is nobody expects to happen. I mean, I think most people think that Harold Henderson will uphold the decision of the 10-game suspension, and it will go right to federal court, where some people believe he'll have a realistic chance to get some of that suspension reduced. But no idea there, and I can tell you that the people involved in the Tom Brady stuff, they're all wondering it as well when a decision is going to come down from Roger Goodell. And my guess, and it's just a guess, would be late July, early August on that one. And Greg Hardy, I texted someone just last week, do you think we'll have a Greg Hardy decision by Christmas? And they said Hanukkah. So, again, I think sometime before then we'll have it.
That's funny. It's Adam Schefter with us. Thank you, Schefter.
Have a great day, guys.
That's Adam Schefter. We'll have it by Hanukkah. We'll have 8 crazy nights.
The best of Mike and Mike.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
The best of Mike and Mike.
To the victors go the prize. It is our pleasure to welcome 2 of the stars of our U.S. women's national team that had the whole country so excited. And on Sunday, late in the evening in Vancouver, for the first time in 16 years, brought the World Cup back home to the U.S. To my right is Abby Wambach, and to our left is Megan Rapinoe. To both of you, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us
on.
And Megan, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
You got to play the game on your birthday. I was following on Twitter, following along. A twin, you and your sister Rachel, celebrating your birthday on the day that you win the World Cup. So all things considered, Sunday's a pretty good day.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I don't think I can have any complaints on that day.
I don't think now everybody's on Twitter nowadays, but I don't really engage in Twitter a ton. I'm a big retweeter, but there are a couple of events where I am out there tweeting, and your guys' games were one of them. I mean, can you even at this point put into words how you guys capture the imagination of America and just the backing that you guys have been getting?
Yeah, it's still mind-boggling at this point. We know that I think because it's an every 4-year event, right? So similar to the Olympics, but it's kind of a unique one because it's uniquely our own, where the lights are shining the brightest on our sport, women's soccer. And I think what makes us a little different than the men, the men, obviously, it's a huge, huge, huge deal, huge event. But I think people also get encapsulated with us because they know that we're possibly maybe going to get to the finals. Kind of what the men had an amazing run in 2014, right? And so we don't want to take anything away from them. But I think people really do get on board with us because we have in the past proven that we can get to a final. And obviously this last time around, win the whole thing, which it's been the most surreal few days of our lives, traveling everywhere.
A lot of travel, huh?
A lot of travel, a lot of talking about ourselves. So I'm glad Megan's here because I'm going to talk about her probably the whole time today.
I will too. I'll just talk about me.
It's been amazing. It's been an amazing few days for sure.
Abby and Megan and Allie Krieger, who'll be here later, will be on campus today all across the ESPN family of networks. A couple of different things from the tournament itself. Megan, with the 2 yellow cards, you had to sit one game out. I mean, it was a game that we completely dominated against China, but it took a while to get the goal, and until then you keep thinking, well, you never know what might happen. What was it like having to sit and watch in that one game where you were not able to be on the field?
A little bit brutal. I never want to have to sit out a game, especially not in a World Cup. And to have 2 of us out, Lauren Holiday was out as well. We were actually quite calm, I would say, up there. We felt like the team came out, was super aggressive right from the beginning. Took a little bit to get the goal, but we always kind of felt like it was coming. So I think they settled our nerves in the beginning, but
I would. I mean, listen, it's your guys are used to it because it's your game. I would lose my mind if I knew during a game I was playing that I knew I wasn't playing the next game. I mean, that has to just be a brutal thought. Knowing when that comes out, you're like, oh, well, I'm done the next game. But you guys obviously are used to that because it's part of your sport.
Yeah, it's part of it. I mean, really only every 4 years it's part of it. They did change the rule a little bit. It's too long, especially because every yellow card I get, I don't deserve. So.
Well, I mean, of course.
And then, Abby, as far as you, and speaking of not playing, I mean, that was one of the huge storylines of this, as there were some far more expert in the sport than I who would say that you may be the greatest female soccer player our country has ever produced, and here you were in this crowning achievement at the end of your career, and you were so willing to take the role that you took in this, to not playing as much as you're accustomed to not starting the games, and still, rather than perhaps sulking or creating a problem or whatever it might be, being the leader that you were, maintaining that leadership role. Can you take us into the mentality? When you learned that this was going to be your role here, what thoughts went through your mind, and how did you decide to handle it the way you did?
I mean, there's a few things. First of all, you got to practice what you preach, right? As a leader, and I've been a leader on this team for, a solid at least 5 to 10 years, and I've been saying all this all along. If we do it together, if we stick together, we can win any championship. And that's just the real truth. And the ones that we haven't won, we may have had a little splinter here or there for some reason or another. And I think there's so many different opportunities for each individual player to go off on their own or do something on their own that takes away from the group, that takes away from the totality of what we're trying to accomplish. And I had an opportunity to do it this World Cup, but that's not going to serve us because we all win if we win. And I'm an older player. I'm a realist. I can't go 120 minutes during soccer games. So there was strategy also involved with me not starting. And it's because some of our coaching staff maybe thought that I would be good at penalty kicks. I am a good penalty kick taker. Even though I missed one against Colombia, I am confident that I would have buried a penalty kick if we had to go into penalty kicks later on in the tournament. So there's a lot of strategy involved, and I knew where I stood. I know how my team feels about me. It wasn't an ego thing. I also believed in my teammates that were selected to be starting during these games. That's the other part of it. You needed an entire roster of 23 women that are willing to put themselves aside for the betterment of the team, and you saw that, and that's why I think in a large way why we won.
So for the betterment of the team, and it produces a World Cup championship. So, Megan, in that game, and we try and relate it to other sports. I'll try in my sport, in football, akin to a 21-28-0 lead where you jump out so far ahead. You guys are up 4-0. What's the mentality, and is it hard? Because all you hear the analysts saying, they have to keep going. But that's got to be hard mentally to say, wait a minute, we need to keep being as aggressive with a 4-zip lead. Take us through the thought process on the field.
I think it happened so quickly. It was actually a little easier to be like, okay, I don't think it quite hit us when we were on the field, going up 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 in a matter of just 20 minutes. I think once we got into the locker room, we knew that we had to keep it going, but we were also thinking if we can do this, they can do this. Yeah. They pulled one back before the half. So we kind of knew that we had to keep the pedal down and not give them anything, but there was definitely a moment in halftime where I was like, yeah, we have to keep going, but we're going to win this. And there's no way they're putting 4 on us.
Yeah. Abby Wambach and Megan Rapinoe from the U.S. Women's National Team are here in our studio, and we did a story a couple of weeks ago, and we had Jeff on to talk about it, about how 2 of your teammates who play for the Houston Dash, Megan Klingenberg and Morgan Bryan, are living in Jeff Van Gundy's house in Houston, genuinely because they're not making enough money in your professional league to be able to afford to stay in hotels or whatever the case may be. I know all of you aren't in that situation. But it did, I thought, in an interesting way, shine a light on the fact that this professional league is there, and it's a challenge. So, Megan, what, if anything, would you like to see done, can be done? What would you like our audience, which is filled with sports fans, to know about your professional league and about what we can do and you can do to help grow it and make it a situation where you can afford to live in a house by yourself?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that need to happen. First of all, I think that people need to realize and see, and I think they saw in the World Cup, and, the product on the field is good, and I think that it's entertaining to watch. So support us, go out to your local stadiums, and, when we have games on TV, tune into those games. I think that interest can spark a lot. I mean, I think the league still needs to be longer. It's a startup, so we didn't have it, as long as we wanted originally. And I think that if we can keep growing it, it can be a situation where, everyone's not going to make $1 million, and maybe some players have to work part of the time, not the players on the national team, but make it sustainable for players who aren't necessarily making that much money. They can live in the city year-round. Some people go and live in the city for 5 or 6 months and then have to move away and find other jobs. So for me, I think come out and watch us. We're entertaining. We'll put on a good show and support us. We need that.
Well, we're going to run out of time here, but I asked Julie Foudy the other day, if the 99ers played the 15ers, come on, talk a little trash, who would win? She wouldn't get involved in that. But I know, Abby, you think you guys would have beaten the 99ers, right?
I mean, here's the thing. That was so long ago, and I look up to all of the women that were on the 99 team because they paved the way for us. They helped us get the contracts that we have now. There's no way I'm getting into that fight right now, but if it's me versus Julie, I mean, I'm taking Julie all day.
All right, so you're saying you guys would shut them out. Okay,
we got the trash talk we're looking for. They'll be here all day.
Kidding, Julie.
Congratulations to you both. Thank you so much. Enjoy the day here. See you tomorrow. Mike and Mike.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.